Thank you. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department and Public Safety for your presentation and work on this item. Let's hear from our public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board.
I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Also note for the record that we received 1 e-comment on this item in opposition.
Hello, Audra Morgan. So where does this money come from that you guys spend? Who did you get it from? The people, right? But yet you guys want to dictate where it goes, and then when we give you our opinion, you don't want to hear it. So I'm just wondering, if it comes from us, at what point do we have a say on what happens? But what I'd like to do is address Tara, because, I mean, you're sitting here saying that we're a beacon of liberty, we need to protect the rights of these people, the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, it's really hard because you guys are trampling on our rights every day, and the Constitution doesn't get postponed for a pandemic, but yet when we come and try and say that, you know, you need to respect our rights, you're more worried about the immigration problem and their rights, and that's a problem. I mean, but you were even an activist when you thought that Trump was trampling on your civil rights and everybody's, and yet we're telling you that's what's going on, and you don't seem to care. That's a problem, because you're fighting for other people, and yet we sit here and come and plead and try and get meetings with you, different things like that. And I mean, you're spending all this money like it's just like you just find it on the floor. Oh my gosh, $5 million. What are we going to spend it on? It's about time to start listening to the people and what they want. I mean, because you're spending all of these things. This is coronavirus funds, and it's going to people who are in prison. And I mean, what about the people that are outside of that come to you and ask for your help? That's why you ignore us, because you can't say anything. God's watching.
And that concludes public comment on this item, Chair Fletcher.
All right, thank you. Let me go to my colleague, Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess just to respond to the public comment, you know, this is federal dollars. That is your tax dollars, but it's federal dollars through the COVID emergency supplemental funding. So what this, my question, I have really a question more of staff, and I'm really interested in the interim housing for inmates, because when we open up the crisis stabilization unit in Vista, one of the concerns of that community is the fact that there's a Vista, we have the Vista jail, that sometimes we just hand people, people that are released from the jails, we hand them a bus pass and see you later, or we call them an Uber or something like that. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the interim housing. And is there a time limit, or give me some more information on the interim housing? Because what we don't want to have happen are these inmates that they're released, they did their time, but they go to the homeless camp. So they just, they don't know where else, they get on a bus and where do they go? So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the interim housing.
Thank you for that question, Supervisor Desmond. So this would allow purchasing and contracting to go into negotiations with about 9 different contractors that probation contracts for sober living homes. And so individuals who are exiting custody who may be in need of that would be able to take advantage. And the grant period ends at the end of January 2022. So that would be the term of when that assistance would be available. And I'll ask Patricia if she has anything to add to that.
The interim housing for our reentry population, what is this, people who will be referred to this type of intervention and support are people who are already in line for either employment opportunities, they've completed vocational programs, they're going to be connected to community providers, so it will provide them that level of support for potentially up to 90 days and even a little after to work through just that transition period time when we see reentry as some of the most critical time to get people reconnected, to reunify, and to support them in that process.
So technically, they could be in interim housing for up to 90 days, but the money runs out on January 2022. So that's coming up pretty quick here in a few months. I don't know. I'm just very interested in this program. I'd like to maybe come back later with some sort of a supplement or something like that to provide this interim housing, because a lot of our homeless people and people with behavioral health issues come out of the jails, and this interim housing is very important to at least give them the hand up to get back into housing as opposed to just going back to the streets. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Not seeing any, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations in Agenda Item 2. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.